working doors, spinning fans, and houses that appear out of thin air are all easier to make than you think, especially if you're using a structure block, because except for this timer, all of the actual working mechanics for this door is just this. And by the end of this video, you'll know how to make any of these things. But let's stop ignoring it, because even though the structure block is pretty complex, it's definitely one of my favorite blocks. Unlike most blocks, the structure block actually has its own UI, with you being able to save and load different structures, hence the name. Before making more complex animations, let's first quickly see how to use the structure block. Let's try to copy this house right there. First, we give ourselves the structure block. Then, if you place it down, you can see which direction it faces. So place it to the side of the house or any structure and make sure the bounding box faces this direction into the structure. Then, when you right click on the structure block, you're able to increase the size, and while increasing it, you're also able to rotate. Now just try to put in the correct size. And when you're done, you can also quickly fly around to see if you haven't missed anything. It seems like I made a small error. Simply increase afterwards. Then, name the structure, and then you can press on save. Now we can go to a different location, place a structure block, set the mode to load, and then fill in the structure name. Then when pressing on load, you have a copy of the house, or any structure. Right, so now that we know how to copy a house, we can now go check the most simple animation. Like before, go load a structure, but this time scroll down and select an animation mode. I'll select place by block, put in the time, let's say around 5 seconds. You're also able to put the bounding box off, which hides these lines. Then when you press on load, or powered by redstone, it will load the structure block by block. Back in the original world, we can see I hooked this lever up to a structure block and some command blocks. These command blocks remove the house again and summon lighting. But you might notice that you don't see any structure block, even when loading. That's because the structure block is actually below, but inside the offset I put it 3 blocks higher in the Y direction, which just means up. If I put the Y to 0 and put the bounding box on, now it's again in the ground. But by setting the Y to 3, in this case, it's just perfectly above the ground. The other command blocks only activate when the lever is unpowered because of this redstone torch that inverts the signal. Also, if we select place by layer, it will look like this, which is also pretty nice, although I still like the block by block more. I think it's now a good time to check out how these doors work. Because like mentioned before, it's actually way less complex than most people expect. There are basically 4 different structures. A fully open door, a mostly open door, a mostly closed door, and you guessed it, a not open door. Actually, some people just call it a closed door. And the only thing these structure blocks are doing is loading the 4 different structures. Since because of the combination of the 4 structures, it looks like an animation. This is probably more similar to normal animations that you're used to. These kinds of animations just use a bunch of different pictures. And then when showing one picture after another, you get an animation. And that's basically how the door works. I'm now again gonna make a different version, but we're gonna do it together. And here is my door. Now to some of you, this may not look like a door. But oh, let me tell you, this will be a door. The plan is that this whole top structure will slide down. So in the closed state, it will just look like flat ground. But right now it's open. Okay, editor math, please try to make it look like it's in the ground. Okay, thanks, I hope you did it right. Now let's together make the commands. First, let's see which way is the structure block. Okay, now we'll dig into the ground right next to that, and we'll make a bit of space. In total we need 4 different states, so the plan is to just place 4 structure blocks like this. If you want a lot more space without mining, you can just use this command. Right, so now that we have this, we're gonna choose one of the structure blocks, and try to set the bounding box to the door size. Important note, while doing all of this, make sure that the structure block is actually outside of the door area, so it doesn't actually get saved. And in the structure block, you need to make sure you offset it by at least one block, so that the structure block is not actually in here. We can now quickly check in person if it seems correct, and yeah, the door fits inside. And the structure block is not inside of the area. Since the door's open, let's just call it door 4. Because it's the 4th state. Then we press save. Now we can switch the mode to load. And now every time we break stuff, we can go to the structure block, press on load, and then it should be fixed. Magic. Now we need to make everything a block lower. You can either do this by just rebuilding everything, or by moving it with another structure block, just in any way you want. And by the way, if the lines get annoying, you can also open the structure block, scroll down, and think show bounding blocks off. Right, so let's move this down. Gonna place the structure block, gonna set the correct size. Perfect. Just gonna call it something useless, then save it, and load it a block lower. And we press load. Now everything is a block down. I'm also making sure it's also lowered here. So now everything is a block in the ground. Now we're gonna go to our structure blocks. And we're gonna pick the next one. Then, like we did before, we're gonna try to select the correct size. Right, the size and location seems to be correct. Let's quickly confirm this. Perfect. Now we're gonna name it door 3, set it to save. Now we have 2 states of the door. We have the one that's fully open and the one that's mostly open. Now repeat it 2 more times. And there we have it. I actually just realized I needed a 5th structure block, so I called the first one door 0, which is closed. Then there is door 1, which is slightly open. Then door 2, door 3, and door 4. So there are technically 5 structures. Now I just connected some repeaters, and I should be able to close and open this door. Let's just put a lever here. Then we're gonna connect redstone to that. That's the first step. Then we're gonna connect this line to the one side, and to the other side we'll also connect a line, but we're gonna invert the signal. Then we close everything, and it should be ready. Okay, it seems like they're glitching a bit, so I'm just gonna give them a short pulse like this, and I'm gonna make sure that it works like that on both sides, so they should only get a small pulse. Yeah, and there we have it. It can open and close. It's sort of a door. But while everything seems great, it's not perfect. The problem is that even though you can close it while standing on top of it, when you try to open the door and while you're standing on top of it, you just fall through the door. But there is a way to fix it. We can have multiple command blocks and then make them execute at every different door stage. And then in the command block it will just execute as every player in the area of the door and teleport them a block up. There was so much yapping. But finally it's here. But it is slightly glitchy. Oh, this time it worked. But sometimes I also just fall through the grass. So maybe instead of that, I can try something else. It's a few minutes later and I got a solution. First, if we test it out, you see it works pretty nice. The teleporting is slightly glitchy, but I think it could be a lot worse as well. I can also sort of walk, even though it's, like I said before, slightly glitchy. So the way I did this, we're not just activating at every different door stage like before, but instead I made it so that whenever the lever is pressed, this redstone block gets pushed against these 2 command blocks. But instead this command block only activates if there's a grass block right below the player or inside the player, which makes it pretty good in my opinion, even though it might be slightly glitchy. So yeah, there we have it. Just making sure the surroundings look completely normal. So now you got your hidden door. It even has an interior, although maybe not a good one. I just got one question. So now on to the fan. Oh, what? It's blowing me away. No, help, help. Oh, never mind. It was just the levitation effect. Anyways, the fan, just like the door, also has a bunch of different versions, like frames or pictures. This is basically like the animation from before, but then it just loops over and over. And this is similar, because the animation chooses one frame after another frame. And then when looping these pictures, you get something that looks like it's spinning. Also, this piston thingy, I kinda just added for fun. I thought it would look pretty funny if a piston like slowly extends and slowly retracts. Then these safes gets loaded by these structure blocks. We can turn the bounding box on to show it actually works like this. So yeah, I think that's kind of everything I wanted to show. I would love to answer some questions in the comments, or you can ask them in the Discord server. Also, I'm thinking about adding an intro and outro song to my videos. I mean, so far I may be thinking something like